This is yet another early morning in New Delhi, and it's a beautiful morning. We traveled a little bit from the earlier spot, and now we are inside what's called the Central Delhi Ridge. This Central Delhi Ridge is actually huge. It's a little less than 3 times the size of the Central Park of New York, so you can imagine just how big this is. We've explored a different part of the Central Delhi Ridge in a previous video. This video would focus on an area which is called the Buddha Jayanti Park. In fact, we are already inside the Buddha Jayanti Park. We've been here for the last several minutes and the last several shots. This is a park inside the bigger and wilder Central Delhi Ridge. So the Buddha Jayanti Park has a bit of a checkered history, and this is also the reason why you'll notice that a lot of the locals, especially the families who've grown up in Delhi, they would advise you to maybe stay away from the park or to be very careful when you enter this park, because there were some incidents that happened a few decades ago which made this park seem unsafe. Of course, you can see how beautiful and green and somewhat wild it looks today. So about the checkered history, in around 1970s there was a very significant event that happened inside the park, an unfortunate event. So there were 2 children, a brother and a sister. They were kidnapped by 2 men, and they ended up killing those children inside this park. That was the first negative piece of news that made this park notorious. Of course, as you can imagine, a tragedy like that would have been big news at that time. And not just that, there were a few more such incidents and such crimes later on in the park. Of course, those are isolated incidents. Otherwise, this beautiful section inside the Central Delhi Ridge called the Buddha Jayanti Park is a wonderful, relaxing and very green space within Delhi, and also a bit religious. As you can see, the greenery here is more wild than maintained or manicured, because the wild land here actually existed even before the park was built. Of course, if you contrast this park with, let's say, the Central Park in New York, you would realize that in Central Park almost all the trees were planted by humans. Wow, that's like a religious notebook. Somebody has written Ram Ram multiple times on here. I think people put their religious books and those idols in the trees because some of these trees are considered religious. we've talked about quite a few things so far, except for, of course, what's the most obvious, which is the name of this park, why it's called Buddha Jayanti Park. So Buddha Jayanti, it means Buddha's anniversary, and this park was established, I think, in sometime in the 1950s in order to commemorate when Gautama Buddha, who's believed to be the founder, not believed to be, he is the founder of Buddhism, when he attained enlightenment or became God or godlike. I think it was 2,500 years roughly in the mid 1950s, and that's why this park was built within the central Delhi ridge. There you go. The park even has a nice restaurant with a very nice view. And I've realized that this park is definitely more social and nicer than people would sometimes tell you. So now we'll try to find another very significant aspect of the park, which is actually a tree that belongs to the same line as the original tree under which Gautama Buddha is supposed to have sat and done his meditation and eventually received enlightenment. That tree was planted here a few years after the park was established, but of course the tree became a very significant part of the whole park. I think the park was established, I did a little bit of Googling and I found out it was established in 1957, so that's around 10 years after India's independence. And sometime in the 1960s was when the tree, which is called the Bal Bodhi tree, was planted right here within the Buddha Jayanti Park. So the park came first, and the tree, which is associated with Gautama Buddha, that was planted here later on. And as you can see, the park is indeed a little wild, but of course attempts are being made to make it more manicured and more well maintained now. Wow. Here it is. This is the tree I was talking about. It's called the Bal Bodhi tree because it's believed to have descended from the original tree under which Lord Buddha used to meditate. And as you can notice yourself, probably this is a more well-maintained and a more manicured part of the Buddha Jayanti Park. And I think I do like this way, maybe a little more. Or I don't know, maybe I like the wild as much as I like the well-maintained, manicured portions. Though I love how windy this morning is now. This is the original tree which was planted here. As you can see, in 1964, it was brought to Delhi actually from Sri Lanka because the history of the tree goes something like that. A branch of the original tree under which Buddha had meditated, it was sent over to Sri Lanka, and that's where there was a tree growing for many years. And from there, we got a branch, a sapling here, which was planted at this spot. So all this ancestry, it's actually very old and very revered because the tree that we are under right now, this is believed to have descended from the original tree, as I said, under which Buddha meditated. And this goes back thousands of years, 2,500 plus years. This was the time of Ashoka, and that was when the chain started. Ashoka took a branch of the tree and sent it over to what's Sri Lanka today, and from there in the 1960s came another one right here. of course, what you notice right there at the entrance of this enclosure, that's also what you would notice at the entrance of the Buddhist stupas. It's called the Toran, or in Hindi I think it's called Toran. That sound doesn't exist in English. It's also the entrance that we have right here, so it's been made a little bit like a stupa, a religious place. I think looking at this, one can make out that this is rather new. So it was maybe added when the area was being renovated or something. So yeah, I think this is about it. We had a very different kind of video, a very different kind of experience this morning, because we were exploring a park, the Buddha Jayanti Park, and yeah, I'll catch you again soon. Bye.